Mm, doesn't look any record. Ah, so Sophia is here. We do have an ADHD Hellas supporter. Sophia is the current president. Hi, guys.
I
Ari, there's people from all over the world here.
Yeah, that's
Swiss,
awesome.
Switzerland.
Nah.
So, coaches, therapists, ADDers, family members. It's amazing. Sophia is the president of ADHD Hellas currently. Sophia,
Awesome.
Hello all. Thank you. Hello, Ari.
Hello,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you for being here with us. It's such a
Sure.
pleasure to have you here to share knowledge with us.
I'll pretty much do anything Niovi asked me to do, so
yeah,
not a
well,
problem.
this is how it all started. I wanted to share that. Look at that. It was 13 years ago. Ari really kicked off my relationship with ADHD Hellas. He kicked off my relationship with ADHD, and you were the beginning of a long, long journey of specialists. You were frontier specialists coming to Greece. Remember, there was our old logo at Diri. This was our first joint work with ADHD Hellas, and the first professional who came to Greece to talk about ADHD in adults. So, just a few things for those of you that don't know ADHD Hellas, we are the only nonprofit organization that supports adults with ADHD, children with ADHD, families with ADHD, professionals who work with ADHD. At the moment, we are all volunteers, and our work relies on donations. So in the chat, you will find a link so that you can donate if you haven't to our organization. We're all volunteer based, so it really matters. Um, our guest today is Ari Tuckman. He is an old classmate of mine, apart from being an internationally renowned psychologist, speaker, and author. He's written 5 books on adult ADHD. One is especially important, integrative treatment for adult ADHD for us clinicians. The rest are for ADHD adults, really useful. One of the things that Ari brings, apart from his expertise, is his common sense and straightforward and simple manner, making ADHD understandable and usable. And today, he's going to talk about productivity and having the right mindset. I don't know if this is something you said, Ari. Pills don't teach skills.
No, that's somebody else's, but it's a great line, right?
It's a great line, and I was thinking how to approach it with like tools and strategies work, but with the right mindset. We have to find another. They bloom, they become bigger. So a little bit of housekeeping. This will be 1 hour and 30 minutes. We will keep the last 30 minutes for questions. You can also be putting your questions in the chat. Actually, that would help for organizing. This seminar is being videotaped and then will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, right, Sophia? It will be at ADHD Hellas's YouTube channel, which I encourage you to
Thank you.
subscribe. Great. And we'll be sending off Ari's presentations for anyone who wants them. His slides are available for all. That's it, unless I forgot something. I think that's it. So, Ari, the floor is yours.
Okay. It's great to be here. I've been lucky enough to come to Greece 3 times. And I was really lucky enough because 2 of those times it was paid for by somebody else because I was presenting. So traveling places where someone else pays is the best way to go. So um, I've known Niovi since 1992, which feels like 8 million years ago. But here we are. And I'm very excited to be here. Sort of volunteered really eagerly to, be a part of this here. Um, so what I do, I'm just kind of getting rid of all these annoying black boxes on the screen.
Hey,
Uh,
Ari, can
yeah,
you help me get rid of the annoying ding dong of people coming in because I cannot find it on Zoom? Do you know where it is?
I do not know where that
Does
is.
anybody else know where it is really
My
fast?
autistic self starts searching for that already. I'm all on it.
Okay, just put it in the chat because this is really annoying and I thought I could do it, but I haven't. So let's go.
All right, cool. So, cool. All right. Um, so when I'm not presenting, I'm a psychologist. I sit in my office, I meet with clients. I saw somebody just before this. Like this is kind of what I do, is work with clients on mostly folks with ADHD, just sort of live happier, more productive lives. And let me actually also say, I don't know if it's possible to set people to just automatically admit, because otherwise what happens is it's going to pop up that black bar on the top of my screen. So if we can figure that out as well. But okay, so in terms of being more productive, in terms of getting stuff done, right? So there's Russell Barkley's famous saying about ADHD that ADHD is not a disorder of knowing what to do. It's a disorder of doing what you know. So if you have ADHD, you know really well that you should, I don't know, get places on time, start things earlier, don't interrupt people when they're talking, right? These are not hard concepts. You know very well how to do this. Um, what's hard, of course, is doing it consistently, but that's kind of always going to be the hard thing in life is doing it consistently. So in terms of being more productive, in terms of getting more things done, it's easy to just sort of throw strategies at people, right? You should set a reminder. You should do a to-do list. You should take a big project and break it into a lot of small pieces. The problem is most people with ADHD don't need just more strategies, right? You probably know those strategies really, really well. So to just suggest that all it take is writing a to-do list is it can feel kind of insulting. Sort of like, really? Do you not think I haven't already thought of that as an idea? And if that worked, wouldn't I just be doing it? So, what we're going to talk about here today then is how to sort of deal with or how to actually get stuff done in a deeper and more meaningful kind of a way because people are complicated, right? We're not just robots where you load the code and then everything happens. That there's a lot that can happen between I have this idea in my head and here I am actually doing it out in the world, right? That like things are messy and things get complicated and stuff doesn't always go according to plan. I mean, if people were really just 100% rational and reasonable, I wouldn't have a job as a psychologist. My friends who are coaches wouldn't have jobs because people would just do what they do. So clearly that's not what happens. So sorry, I'm like admitting people while I'm presenting. So this is
No! I figured out, I found Dionysius gave me I found the ding dong
okay.
thing out.
All
I'm
right,
going on
good.
the next one.
All right, awesome. So this is a saying that someone used and I really love it. I use it a lot, which is a problem well defined is a problem half solved, right? The better you understand what's getting in the way, you're halfway to figuring out what to do about it. So when I think about people who are experts, people who are really good at what they do, this is what they're really good at. They're really good at figuring out what the problem is. So, for example, if you finally saw a therapist or a psychiatrist or someone who figured out, oh, wait a second, you're not just anxious and depressed, And that's not the reason why you're not getting things done. You have ADHD. That's why you're not getting things done, which, by the way, is also pretty good reasons to feel anxious and depressed about how things are going in your life. So, it's with that, or, if I take my car to the shop and it's doing some weird thing, if they figure out like, oh, this is the part, this is what's a problem here, and they fix the right part, then my car is going to work out well, right? Or if you go to the doctor or the plumber or whoever it is that you're seeing to help fix whatever the problem is, the better they can identify the problem, the more targeted they can be in saying, this is probably something that's going to be helpful to you. So when we talk about productivity, then we got to figure out what the problem is, right? Because if the problem is, oh, wait, I got distracted and forgot I had to do it, that's going to have different solutions than, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with this, or this is really hard. I don't know that I'm up for doing it, right? Those are different problems, and they will have different solutions. So a big part of the work that I do with clients then is figuring out like, so what exactly is getting in the way here? Like in this specific situation, what is getting in your way? And I look for all of the ways to help make success like a little bit more likely. And that could be some obvious things like, let's get rid of distractions so you're more likely to stay on task. But it could even be things like, how much are you sleeping, right? Because if you didn't sleep enough, that's going to make it harder to, pull in your focus and do what you need to do. There's also some discussion here. We're not going to talk about this today because it's a different presentation, but there's also some discussion maybe about like how productive do you actually need to be? I mean, more productive is, like there's some benefit to that, but at some point, I don't know, maybe good enough is good enough, right? So you don't have to be perfect in order to feel good about how you're doing. And you don't necessarily have to be perfect for other people to feel good about how you're doing. And also, sometimes you can feel okay about how you're doing, even if somebody else doesn't feel as good about it, right? So, part of sort of living with ADHD might mean having conversations with other people about what is reasonable or not reasonable for them to expect of you, but also how did they interpret it? So, for example, you often run late when we get together. I feel like you don't really care about my time. Okay, that's not a crazy interpretation, right? Like one could see why someone might come to that idea. So you might explain it as, look, I'm really bad at getting places on time. Honestly, I'm late to my own things. It doesn't say anything about how much I value the friendship or how much I value your time or how considerate I want to be. Like, I do want to be considerate, but this is a really hard thing for me. So, because it's hard for me to get places on time, let's do this. I'm going to text you when I'm leaving. Like, don't leave your house until I leave, because that way you're not waiting at the restaurant until I get there, right? That's another good way of solving the problem of I tend to get to the restaurant late. So we have a lot of options here. But the goal ultimately is to feel like you have more agency, meaning I can control what I do, I can control what happens to me. And if you're not managing your ADHD well, it feels like you don't have as much of that control as you would want. So genuinely being more effective in some ways, and then also feeling good about yourself, feeling better about yourself for the things that go well, and being able to be okay with the things that don't go as well as you might hope. So we're going to talk about, we're going to cover three different areas here. And the first one is something known as ambiguity, meaning, I know I have to do something, but I'm not entirely sure what it is. Um, so in general, most people don't like things being sort of open and unknown, right? I've got this project for work. It's kind of important. I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do with this. Most people feel uncomfortable with uncertainty or the unknown. And one of the ways of dealing with it, obviously, is let's figure out what the deal is. But also, sometimes when something is unknown like that, we just sort of like avoid dealing with it, right? It's sort of like, I'm going to work on this other thing because at least this thing I know what to do. So it might be a thing where you don't really know what you're supposed to do, or you don't know how you're supposed to do it, or is this like, should I spend an hour on this or should I spend 10 hours on it? Are we giving this to the customer or is this just for internal use, right? Just are people just people here at the company are going to see it. Um, or what's the point of doing this anyway, right? What am I trying to, I know I'm supposed to put this thing together, but what are we using it for? Or what's the actual deadline? And sometimes that means, no, like seriously, what is the real deadline? Because sometimes people sort of lie about deadlines. Now, the ADHD part of this is as much as everybody feels uncomfortable not knowing what they need to do, it can feel even more uncomfortable if you have this worry in the back of your mind that they told you and you forgot. Or like, I don't think I was paying attention in that part of the meeting. And if I ask them, they're going to know I didn't know. Like, they're going to know I screwed that up. So then you feel caught in this trap. I don't know what to do, but I can't ask about it either. And that is a really terrible place to be. So your job then is to figure out what the hell the job is, right? That I need to take some time. I need to think about this. I need to figure it out, or I need to figure out how I'm going to figure it out, right? I need to do this kind of a thing. I've never done it before. Can I find some samples of what other people have done? Or maybe I did this a while ago, but I don't really remember it that well now. Let me go digging back on my hard drive and let me see if I can find that other one. Right. So some of it is the sort of cognitive effort to really kind of think about it and do the work to figure it out. But there might also be kind of like emotional effort, as in like, this makes me feel really uncomfortable. Like I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Or I think I just need to go talk to my boss, even though that might reveal that I sort of wasn't really paying attention in that meeting, or I didn't write down notes I should have, or maybe they said something and maybe they didn't. And the fact that I don't even know if they said anything, like that doesn't look good either. So, like, some of it might be that emotional effort of like, this feels uncomfortable. And also, I'm going to do it anyway. Like, I just need to get through it. And then maybe things get a bit better on the other side. So obviously, this is, it's hard, right? It takes effort. And it's easy to talk ourselves out of doing things that are hard. So how do we talk ourselves into it? Well, what are the benefits of doing it? Like, if I get this thing done, what is the good stuff that comes from it? And some of it might be sort of tangible stuff, as in like, if I do a good job on this report, my boss is gonna, have good thoughts and maybe they'll assign me to some other more interesting project or something. Or I need to figure out what we're doing for vacation this summer, or I need to buy new insurance and like I don't know what the hell, like I don't even understand any of it, right? So the benefit is I'll get the insurance that we need for the right price, and right, that's a good thing. But there's also this sort of intangible part, meaning that was really hard or that was kind of uncomfortable, but I did it and like I feel good about myself for doing it. Like I might not have done that before. Like I have unfortunately, a lot of examples of things I didn't do, and that really feels kind of bad. So like this is good. Like I feel good that this is a thing that I was able to accomplish. So when we don't want to do it, when it feels bad in the moment, we have to be able to connect to something better, right? We have to be able to feel something better, right? How will it feel when I'm on the other side of it? and to really sort of like hold on to that feeling as the way to kind of get through the uncomfortable part of this. Now, if you really can't figure it out, or it would take you, 6 hours to figure it out on your own, or 6 minutes to ask someone else who knows how to do it, um, maybe just ask somebody. Maybe it's your boss, like, hey, boss, what's the deal with this? Or maybe you ask a friend or a colleague. You say, like, hey, have you done this thing before? Oh, okay, cool. Give me some pointers. Like, what should I know here? Like, what's your big advice? Or here's my question. I don't know what to do with this. Like, what should I do? Um, again, there's the worry of if I ask someone, especially like if it's the person you're doing it for, are they going to find out that, like, whoops, you dropped the ball before, you didn't pay attention when you should have, or you forgot it, or you didn't take notes or whatever, right? Like, I understand you don't want to like reveal the secret of, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. But of course, the problem is if you give somebody something different than what they asked for, kind of the secret comes out anyway. So it's not really an awesome secret in that point, right? Or in that way. Um, Sometimes when we're doing something we don't understand, we just have to be willing to jump in. It's sort of like, walking around the pool doesn't make the water any warmer, right? You just jump in and it's cold. And then in about a minute, it's fine. You're like, oh, this is good. I'm glad I'm here. And sometimes when something is overwhelming, you just need to be willing to be overwhelmed, but also have faith that your brain will begin to make sense of it. And I think about when I had to buy a new computer. I mean, first of all, if you just start searching for computers, there's like 80 million computer models out there. And there's like these like here's a name brand of something and here's something, and do I want that or do I want this other thing? What does this even mean? This one has 700 but that's 600, but does it matter? Is that like a number, a real number? Is that just like some sort of bullshit marketing thing, right? It's completely overwhelming really quickly. But also then you just sort of stay in it. You're like, okay, well, let me figure this out. And then you start making some decisions that you say, like, okay, I need this much RAM. Like, there it is. From this amount, I need from 8 to 12 gigs of RAM. There it is. Done. Now I've eliminated, 70 million computers. So like now I'm down to only 10 million. Okay, so now there's that. Now what else? And then what else? And then what else? Right. And you just start chopping it down so that it becomes a bit more manageable. Is it possible I missed some computers that might be better for me? Maybe. But also, I don't want to spend a whole week finding a computer. And also, I'm not using my computer to go to the moon. I think it's going to be fine. And if it isn't, I'll just get mad and then buy a new one, whatever, right? So it doesn't need to be the biggest decision ever. But also, it's going to take some work, right? Like when I had to buy a new computer, I just accepted the fact that like it's going to take some work. I'm going to have to spend some time. I'm going to need to do some research. And then I'm just going to have to cross my fingers and hope it works out. And that is a lot of things in life. So when I wrote my newest book, the ADHD Productivity Manual, which all of this stuff is kind of coming out of that book, I wanted the readers to get to sort of have a way to take the information off of the page and actually put it into their lives because that's actually the thing that matters, right? Ideas on the page are nice. What's much nicer is I'm doing something with it and my life is better. So I ended every chapter with this put it to work section. And the idea is kind of what it says, right? How do I put this to work? So some questions then to be thinking about. One is identify what feelings or insecurities ambiguity brings up for you. So, for example, do you feel, I don't know, I feel like I'm not smart enough, maybe? Or do you feel like, guilty of like, oh, I messed up, I should know this, but I don't? Do you feel, I don't know, like you don't compare well to others, like other people wouldn't be confused by this? Why am I confused, right? All our insecurities come out in those moments. Um, So that's how you're feeling and what you're thinking on the inside. But then how do you respond on the outside, right? What is the response that comes next? And here's the therapy question, like, what could you do different, right? What are your other options in dealing with those uncomfortable thoughts and feelings? Second idea here, create a list, meaning actually like write it down or write it down, however you write it down, but write down a list of things you can tell yourself when you're tempted to avoid clarifying ambiguity. And I say write it down because in the moment, we can't think of anything. Mind goes blank, we're stuck, right? It just feels lost. So actually creating a list gives you something to refer to of like, oh, right, I can figure this out, or I figured these things out before, or who can you ask for help? Like whatever it is that might be helpful to you in that moment. And then finally, identify one current task or project where ambiguity is holding you back, right? So where is one place in your life, whether at home or at work or in school, if that's a thing you do, like where are you stuck because of ambiguity? And what's the next thing you can do? Like what is one thing you can do to kind of begin to get this moving a little bit? So some things to be thinking about. So let's switch gears and let's talk about ambivalence. So ambivalence is those situations where we're kind of torn, right? Like, part of me kind of wants this, and part of me thinks I should do that. Like, I can't really decide what to do here. Um, so there are certain tasks that we need to do where we're pretty clear. We're like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. Got it. But then there's other tasks where we really don't have a clear decision, right? That again, like we feel kind of more than one way about it. Like I feel like I should go to this event, but I really don't want to. It's too late, it's too far. I don't think it's going to be fun. I'm not sure if it's going to be helpful, whatever my reasons, right? Like, or like, I really feel like I should look at new insurance because I feel like we're spending a lot, but like, God, that sounds terrible to do it. Do I really want to do it? Like, I should, but I don't. And like, so those are hard. That's a hard place to be. And I've noticed with, a bunch of clients in different situations that they're kind of like stuck in between. They can't decide which way to go, so they just sort of sit in the middle. Now, if you tend to be a bit perfectionistic, it makes it easier to get stuck in this ambivalence, right? Because on the one hand, it's sort of like, well, if I'm going to look at insurance, I need to look at all of the insurance plans to make sure I really get the best deal. But also, looking at all of the insurance plans sounds terrible. Instead of like, well, I'm going to look at I'll pick a few of them that are probably that's what it's going to be. I'm going to pick a few and that'll be fine. That'll be enough. But also, if you tend to be perfectionistic, it's hard to just let it go, right? Because there's this anxiety of like, I'm not doing the best thing here. But there's also times when it's not simply a thing of like, I feel like I should do this. It might also be a thing of, I feel like I should want to do this, right? Like I should be someone who wants to do this thing. And I don't know, maybe, but also like maybe that isn't true, right? Like maybe it doesn't have to be true. We all do things in life that we don't want to do. Like it's okay to not want to do things and also just do it anyway. So, the ADHD angle on this is that if you're someone who spent a lot of your life doing things that are not what some other person thought you should be doing in that moment, you will have gotten a lot more sort of corrections and criticisms. Why are you doing that? Why didn't you do this? Where are you? Why this? Why that? And it can, first of all, feel terrible, obviously, but it can make it harder then to either figure out like what do I actually want, or to feel like you're allowed to want what you want or allowed to feel what you feel, because it seems like other people feel this other way, right? Other people just do this stuff. Why can't I just do this stuff? Kind of a thing. Um, so for certain things, it might be that it's sort of like, you know what? This isn't my goal. Like this is not as important to me as it is to somebody else. And maybe that's okay. Um, since we live and work and interact with other people, we should all be good team players. I think that's probably generally good advice. But maybe this thing that you're kind of being asked to do, or is just sort of unspoken but somehow expected of you to do, maybe it's just not a thing you actually want to do, right? It's sort of like, I don't want to do this thing. I understand you do, but I don't know that I do. Or that it's sort of a situation where you really don't want to do it, but maybe you feel like you can't say no, right? I have this thing for work or I have this thing at home and I really don't want to do it, but I also feel like I have to, right? And that's not a great place to be. Um, so this can then create a situation where if you have too many experiences where you feel like you're kind of running behind, right? Where you're not quite doing as good a job as you would like to, or, at work or maybe at home with your spouse, where it seems just like too often they're kind of like disappointed or frustrated, or you're not showing up as a friend in the way that you would like to, and then the other friend is kind of noticing and seems kind of annoyed about it. It might feel like in that case, like you can't say no, right? Here's this thing, I really don't want to do it. Like, hey, can you go through all these boxes and, get rid of the stuff we don't need? And you're just thinking like, oh my God, I would rather eat the box than go through it and figure out what papers or what old kids' toys or whatever we don't need. Um, and yet it's sort of like, yeah, but my spouse is kind of annoyed at me right now. So like, I should probably just say yes. And like a little bit of this is a good thing, right? If you have good awareness of relationships, right? It's important that things are fair and balanced, right? Sometimes I do you a favor, sometimes you do me a favor. We're both happy. This is working well. But where it isn't helpful is when it feels like not so much I'm choosing to do you a favor because that is good for you and it's good for the relationship, and I will feel good about me for doing you a favor, but rather I have to do this for you. It's like I can't say no, so therefore it has to be yes. Um, so even in those situations, I don't know, we still have to think about it in the sense of like, you're asking this of me, or I feel there's a pressure or an expectation that I should do this thing. Can I even pull it off? Like, should I say, okay, honey, I'll go through all that stuff and I'll clean it up. Like if I think about my day or if I think about my week, do I even actually have time to do it? Because if I don't, I probably shouldn't make a promise I can't keep. Or I could do it, but then at what cost? What am I not getting to? Like if I do this, then I'm not doing a bunch of other stuff. And is it even going to help things? Are you even going to be happy about it if I did it? Or are we in kind of a bad place and we need to really have a bigger conversation here? Um, so when we're feeling kind of torn, right? I kind of feel like I should, I kind of feel like I don't want to, right? Which way do I go? So we can tip that this way, we can tip it this way. It doesn't matter which way we go, as long as we find one, right? One clear winner or clear enough, let's go. So half of this is maybe there are things we can do. So it's not quite so tempting to say, no, I'm not going to do this. So maybe the thing we need to do is step back and figure out like, what would be helpful to know? So for example, if you're going through a whole bunch of papers and you need to get rid of stuff, maybe what's helpful to know is, so what papers do I actually need to keep? right? I know you need to keep some things for a certain number of years for taxes, but like, what exactly do we need to keep, right? Maybe that would be helpful to know. Um, or maybe I have some assumptions here. Maybe I should really find out if those are accurate. I assume you want me to do this. Is that true? Or I assume this is the right way to do it. Is that actually the case? Um, Maybe you need to ask what the other person is expecting, right? Rather than guessing at what they're expecting, maybe you need to find out. And maybe we need to negotiate a little bit. I know you're asking me to do this. Tell you what if I do this other thing instead? Maybe we'll have a different conversation about how I do it. Maybe we have a different conversation about what the end result is, right? I'll go through all the papers, but I would like to be able to spread it all out on the big table. It'll take me a couple days. Are you okay with that? Um, and then, if you come to the decision of like, look, I'm just not going to do this. I'm not going through the boxes, or I'm not going to figure this out, or I'm not going to whatever. How big a problem is it, right? And really knowing what the cost is so that you can make kind of a good decision, because some things are worth it, but also some things are not so much worth it. Now, on the other side of it, besides, figuring out over here, right? How do we make it less tempting to say no? Maybe instead we want to make it easier to say yes. So, is there a way to do this so it's easier or quicker or less painful? Because the problem is, the more painful something is, the more frustrating, the more annoying, it's much harder to pull up the motivation to make yourself do it, to start it. And it's much harder to kind of like keep working all the way through. So, lots of good ADHD friendly strategies involve ways of making boring, frustrating, annoying tasks less so. Or if it's going to be challenging, is there someone who can help you or guide you with this? Right. So, like when I was looking at computers, I kind of asked around a little bit, or I looked on a website that has like good, reliable information to help kind of like help me figure out what matters and what stuff is just kind of marketing and nonsense. Um, or what do I gain from this? So again, connecting to the benefit on the other side, right? How is this good for me? How is my life better? How will I feel differently if I'm able to sort of like work my way through it? Now, even if you do all of this, even if you decide, okay, I'm going to do this, or actually I'm going to do that, um, there are times in life where neither decision actually feels good, right? If you say, okay, I'm going to do this, it may not be a decision that you're like, there, I have perfect, I feel like that was absolutely the best decision, no doubt about it. Often in situations like this, it's sort of like you feel slightly better about it. Like that's it. You go from straight, equal, can't decide to, okay, just barely a little bit. I guess I'll do that. Um, and then there's other decisions that just feel bad, even if they're the right decision, right? So like, okay, I'm going to take on this project at work, even though I'm going to hate it. And I'm going to regret doing it in some ways, but it is the thing to do. Like, this is the better thing. I just need to sort of suffer through. Or I need to pass up this opportunity, even though that kind of kills me a little bit. It's not the right time, like, or this is not the right project, or it's not the right something. And it's not going to feel okay. So at this point, it's not about getting more information. It's about just accepting the discomfort of like, this doesn't feel good and it's not going to, right? So, like, this is what it is, decision made, on to the next thing. So, let's put some of this to work then. Identify a few tasks where you're ambivalently stuck on it. And what are the two sides of the coin, right? What are your arguments for, I really should do this thing? What are your arguments for, I really don't want to do this thing? And where do these ideas come from? And what do you need to know to decide which way you want to go on this? Because ADHD already is going to give you more things that are either not started or not finished. And sometimes we just need to like get some stuff done or at least make a decision about it and get it out of our life. Because if you have too many things hanging over you, then everything feels more stressful. So making some real decisions about what to do. Um, how can you make one of these ambivalent tasks either easier or less awful so that you can sort of pick a side and move on, right? So here's a task I need to do. What's going to feel good enough, or what is a way to make it less, difficult to like get that motivation going so that you can get the job done and move on with your life. And then finally, identify a task that you feel obligated to complete, but just can't get going on. I'm sure we all have some of these things hanging over us and they've been there for a while. So rather than finding a way to make yourself do it, maybe the solution here is find a way to talk to the other person or whoever is expecting this of you and to just say like, look, I know that you want me to do this. I'm not going to do it. Like, it's just not happening. Other things are more important. Other things are coming first. I'm sorry. I'm just not going to get this done. And I know it can feel like you don't have the right to do that if you feel like you have too many things that you're not getting done. But this is always an option. And it's sometimes better to just have that direct conversation rather than have it just sort of hanging or for the other person to be wondering or expecting or frustrated or like maybe both people just feel a little bit better saying, okay, this is not a thing that's going to happen. So our last section here is how perfect does this need to be? And the illustrations here, I didn't put one on the ambivalent slide, but these illustrations came out of my book. A friend of mine who's a psychologist as well, Marcy Caldwell, did the illustrations, and I think she did a great job. So it makes the book more interesting, and it makes two out of my three title slides in this presentation more interesting as well, hopefully. So um, so perfectionism it's sort of a common way that anxiety can show up in people. And that means people who don't have ADHD, but it also can mean people who do have ADHD. That perfectionism is a way of kind of managing anxiety, right? If I'm worried on the inside about, I hope they like this thing I'm doing, I'm worried it's not going to be good enough. If I put a lot of energy into making it like really, really good, then maybe I can worry a bit less, right? So it's an external solution to an internal problem, right? On the inside, I'm feeling anxious, so I'm going to do this thing extra good on the outside. Now, it's not a bad idea, right? For some things, like you do want to do a really good job. Where it becomes less helpful is when it is like doing it too much, right? So spending more time than it's kind of like really worth. And that maybe the better thing is to sort of like calm yourself down a bit on the inside. Now, it might also be a situation where if let's say you didn't do such a great job in the last couple, in the last couple meetings at work, so you're thinking like, ooh, I should really do a good job on the next one. That's actually pretty smart. Like that is a good idea, right? Make your reputation a little better in your boss or your coworkers' eyes. Where it becomes not helpful is when you feel like you need to be extra prepared. So a friend of mine uses this example that the student misses a deadline on the 5-page paper. Professor says, you know what, I'll give you 2 more days. That's fine. And then the student says to themselves, well, she gave me extra time. It now needs to be an even better paper. And now instead of doing a 5-page paper, they're doing like a 10-page paper, right? Because they're like, I need to prove to the professor that it's worth the extra 2 days. The problem, of course, is did they then miss the deadline because it takes too long to write 10 pages? But there's also the question of like, well, wait a second. Did the professor say, I'll give you 2 more days, but it better be twice as good? I don't think they did. So like maybe you just need to hand in a good enough paper and just the goal is to get it done, not to get it perfect. Um, Now, of course, the problem with perfectionism is that time and energy has to come from somewhere. If you spend twice as long on something, like what are you not getting to? So it might mean you have less time for other things at work, but also for a lot of folks with ADHD, it you want to spending more time at work or more time on stuff at home, and where the time comes is out of taking care of yourself. This is a bit more true for women than men, but that like the price of ADHD, so to speak, is not taking good care of yourself. So you're not getting enough sleep, or you're not working out, or you're not eating healthy, or you're not having time to relax or socialize or do fun things, that you're just always kind of grinding away, which obviously makes everything else worse, right? So more anxious, more depressed, maybe drinking more, maybe not, more sleep problems, maybe whatever, right? Everything else gets worse when we don't take care of ourselves. But it can also kind of delay the initial diagnosis of ADHD. And this is, again, still maybe in general more true for women than men, but it's sort of like, you seem fine. I don't know what the problem is, right? And you've gone to your doctor or you've seen a therapist, and they're like, you seem like you have it all together. You don't have ADHD. And it's like, well, maybe I do, but I'm killing myself to do it all, right? Not everybody else works for 2 hours at home because they didn't get it done in the 8 hours at the office, for example. So, now there's also part of this is there's like actual perfectionism, but there's also some stuff with ADHD that can look a bit like perfectionism. So if you're like hyper focusing on something, should have spent 20 minutes on it, that would have been fine, but you get locked in and then you spend an hour. Someone on the outside might say, why are you being perfectionistic about this, right? Why are you spending so long? It didn't need to be this good. Um, but it's not about this has to be perfect. It's more about I lost track of time. Whoops, I spent too long. Or another sort of way that this shows up is the task itself is kind of boring and I just can't like motivate myself to do it. But if I add this other stuff to it, if I make it bigger, or I make it different, if I make it more exciting, now I can motivate myself for it. So it's kind of clever, right? It's a good motivation technique, except it comes at the cost of working harder on something than maybe you needed to do. It might also be that spending extra time on this thing is a way of avoiding having to go on to the next thing. Like, really, I should be working on my taxes, but God, that seems so painful and boring. So instead, here I am working on this. Like, I'm cleaning the kitchen, and boy, is this perfect, right? This is like we could sell the house because of how clean the kitchen is, or whatever. And it's not about I really want a clean kitchen. It's about like I don't want to work on taxes, right? So it's a way of avoiding the harder task. So in these moments, then, the question to be considering is, this just needs to be good enough. What can I do to crank up my motivation to just get good enough done, right? How do I sort of just push my way through to something that meets the requirements, and then I can do other things that I actually want to do? Now, sometimes with this sort of perfectionistic stuff, what's sort of like, we talked about earlier, maybe the problem is you're not entirely sure of like, well, so wait, why am I actually doing this, right? Or how good does this really need to be? I don't remember what they said because I don't know, maybe I missed it. But whether it's something that comes from someone else or something that we're just thinking for ourselves, it takes some real thought to really figure out like how good does this need to be, right? I've got this is kind of important to me, but I have other things that are also important to me. Like, how much energy and time do I put into things? If somebody else is asking you to do it, I don't know, how much negotiating power do you have? If they're saying this needs to be really good and it needs to be like this, do you have the right, do you have the ability to say, yeah, I understand that that's how you would want it, but here's the thing, I have a lot of other things to do, so I don't think I can do that, but maybe I could do this. What do you think? And then finally, because perfectionism is a way of dealing with that sort of uncertainty of like, I'm going to hand this thing in. I don't know if it's good enough. Um, Maybe I just need to sort of work on feeling less anxious about it, right? So I have a client who's in vet school and takes 2 hours to listen to a lecture and do her notes. And we're talking about it. Like, maybe your notes are, maybe there's too much information in your notes. Maybe it's taking you too long to write the notes. Maybe it's taking you too long to study the notes. Is there a way to take less time to do it? And it might still be good enough because she doesn't have enough time to do all her notes, right? So that there's some risk. The professor might ask a question that you didn't write down in your notes, but also maybe it's going to be fine. Maybe your notes are going to be good enough, right? So there's always that, like, I don't know what's going to happen next in life, and I need to make my best decision that I can, and then move on to the next, and move on to the next, and move on to the next. If you overthink everything, you don't get much done in a day. Now, there's an interesting other part of this. So, like, usually when we talk about perfectionism, we talk about the end result, right? Like, the end result of this has to be great. But that's kind of what's called back end perfectionism. But there's also front end perfectionism, meaning this idea that in order for me to do this, in order for me to get this task done, everything has to be like just right. I have to be in the mood. I have to have just the right stuff. I have to have everything set. There can't be any distractions. Everything has to be perfect because otherwise I can't make myself do it. And on the one hand, I'm all in favor of creating like the best circumstances for the work you need to do, right? And a lot of what I talk about with clients and write about and present about is like, how do you set up a good situation? I'm all in favor of good self-awareness of like, I know myself well. This is what works best for me. But also, sometimes it isn't going to be perfect, right? That like I'm not really in the mood, but maybe I can still do it anyway. Or like it's annoying that there's that distraction over there, but like I'm going to try to not be distracted and I'm still going to at least see if I can get something done. Because otherwise, if I only wait for things to be just right, most of the time it isn't just right. So I'm going to get a lot less done. Um, and sometimes we just hope for momentum. If I start it, if I give it a minute, even though it's not perfect, maybe it catches, right? Maybe I start a minute and then it becomes five and then it becomes 20 and then like, okay, I've really gotten something done here. So let's put this to work then. Identify the types of tasks or situations where you might be tempted to overdo it. What's driving that? Where are those places that perfectionism kind of pulls at you a little bit, and it's hard to kind of let that go. Or coming at it from the other side, maybe this feeling of like I owe people stuff and I have to go the extra mile. Maybe we need to kind of get to the root cause of that. Maybe we need to figure out where that begins. So like, what are the things that need to happen earlier in your day or earlier in your week so that you can be more on top of the demands that you have so you don't feel like you're always behind with people, right? So that you have the right to say, this is as good as it needs to be. It could be better, but this is all the time I'm going to give it because I have other things to do, right? That's a lot easier if you don't feel like you're in a bad spot with people. And then finally, what can you tell yourself to make it feel okay that this is not perfect, right? To sort of tolerate that uncertainty. So, some things to think about. Actually, we have four things. I thought we had three. We actually have four. So let's talk about the love and hate of deadlines. And as much as anybody, we can all have kind of mixed feelings about deadlines. I think with ADHD, there's even more of those strong feelings about deadlines because, on the one hand, there's often a feeling of like this idea of like I get most of my best work done right before the deadline. And there's also a feeling of like, oh, I hate deadlines. I hate that I have to get pushed by stuff and it makes me do what I don't want to do. So, in general, like a big part of what makes ADHD is not feeling future deadlines until they get a whole lot closer to right now. So it's not that someone with ADHD maybe doesn't know that there's a deadline. It's not that they don't know that it would be helpful maybe to work on it earlier and then get some things done and not do all of it at the last minute. But a big part of ADHD is not feeling the pressure of the deadline when it's still kind of far away. Or another way of putting it is it's harder to like internally generate that motivation beforehand. To like, if it's hard to make yourself feel motivated, then you'll be more motivated by the pressure of the deadline that's like right on top of you. Now, of course, the thing is, nobody likes being made to do something. And you might really not like to be made to do something, even if you're the one making yourself do it, right? Nobody else is telling me to go to the gym, but like, "Ugh, I hate going to the gym. Why do I have to do this?" Right? And then you get into an argument with yourself about going to the gym when you're the only one standing there. Um, but at the end of the day, nobody can actually make you do anything. Everything we do because we choose to do it. We might be unhappy that we need to do it, but when we do something, we do it because it's better than not doing it. So even things like you don't actually have to pay taxes. Like you don't. You can totally not pay your taxes. But if you don't, you accept the fact that you might get hit with a bunch of penalties, you might actually go to jail, you might not, I don't know, be able to apply for a house loan, right? It's sort of like, well, those are worse. Okay, I guess I'll do the taxes, even though I wish it was less painful to do it, right? So even there, we're still making choices, even if we wish we had different options. Now, one of the things that I've noticed with a bunch of my clients, and especially my ADHD clients, is as much as a really hard deadline can be a good way to sort of kick someone into gear and get them going, I've noticed that some of the clients I see, they'll sort of let themselves off the hook, right? That they don't actually set a real deadline. And this could be a thing like not having an actual bedtime, as in like, well, I'll go to bed at like, I guess some point this evening or before tomorrow or before tomorrow night, I suppose I'll go to bed versus like, well, by 11, I should really be like turning off the lights. Or maybe it's something like, I should really work on this thing, but at some point, right? So they don't say I should really get this done by the end of Friday. Um, or if it's a deadline that's come from somebody else that they don't really know what that deadline is. Like I know I need to get this thing into my boss, or I know I have this big paper due for my class, but I don't know when it's due. Um, as we said before, it might be this thing of like, I think they told me, but I don't remember and I don't want to ask, right? Which is a hard place to be. Um, or it's a situation of, I know my boss wants me to get this thing done by the end of Thursday, but I just don't like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, but I don't want to talk to them about it because then they're going to be mad. I understand nobody likes people being mad or we're worried about them being mad, but it's probably better to have a conversation about that on Monday or Tuesday and not on Thursday when it's due, right? It's much better to let somebody know earlier than to let them know at the last minute. Now, one bit of advice then, if you know you tend to be a last minute kind of a person, is to actually like plan to procrastinate, right? Don't sort of pretend I'll work on this early. Just say like, no, I'm going to work on it at the end. So I have a client who's an attorney. He does big cases. He does really good work, but he's a big time procrastinator. But it's fine. He just knows this is due on the 17th. I will work on it on the 16th. I'm blocking out time. No other thing happens in that day. I will just get it done on the 16th. Um, Works out pretty well for him. Now, where it, if you're going to do this, if you're going to kind of plan to do it at the last minute, it works best if you know pretty much how long it's going to take, right? Is this like a 1 hour thing or is this like a 6 hour thing? That may not be a good thing to leave to the last minute. But if you're like, well, it's like 2 to 3 hours, right? Give or take, pretty close, fine. It also works well if there aren't other things that are going to come up at the last minute, right? So sick kids or, some other emergency or some other thing you need to deal with, and all of a sudden your good plan doesn't feel so good anymore. But part of this might also be that you might have to explain to other people who maybe don't have ADHD, but what they do have is a really strong ability to worry about things beforehand. You might need to explain to them, this is my plan. I will do this. I will get it done, but it will be at the last minute, but I'm still going to get it done. So I've got it. You don't need to nag me about it. Um, that might be part of the deal, right? That you might have to be okay with the fact that other people are going to be anxious. Like, don't be a jerk, but also you don't have to necessarily be responsible for helping them feel less anxious. Now, the thing is, if generally speaking, you tend to get things done, even if it is at the last minute, then you can say, I will get this done. If you often miss deadlines, it's not convincing to say, don't you worry, I'll get it done. So, again, if you're going to do this, you need to be able to know that you can actually do it, if you don't want other people to give you a hard time about it, at least. Now, I mentioned a couple minutes ago that with ADHD, you don't feel the deadline. You don't feel far away deadlines until they get a whole lot closer to right now. So, there's that old advice of like, oh, if you have a big thing due later, just make a bunch of sort of interim deadlines, right? I'll get this done by this week and I'll get this done next week and this much the week after that. And then like I'll hand it in at the end of the month. Sure. Okay. I mean, easy to say, but of course, ADHD is not about knowing, it's about doing. And life for all people is not about knowing, it's about actually doing. So if we're going to do this, maybe we need to schedule in like some real times to work on it. If I have this big thing due at the end of the month, I need to look at my schedule and actually place times in there where I'm going to work on it. But also being smart about it. So if I'm going to, do an hour or two on this, I'm not going to make it the very last thing in my day, because if you say that I'll work on it at 4 o'clock, probably something else like, stuff from the day will sort of knock it out and somehow you just don't get to it. So maybe you're like, I'm going to do this early, or this meeting always runs over. I'm not going to do it after that. But this would be a good place to do it. That's the easy planning part. Then also, how do you, in that moment, here I am, I've set an alarm, this is the time to work on it. How do I sort of motivate myself to do it? How do I find that motivation? So, how does this make my life better? If I work on this now, how do I feel at the end? So, I've got this big thing I need to do and I have to present it to the team. How do I want to feel when I walk into that meeting? Do I want to be walking in with my head held high because I know like I got this, I'm good? Or do I want to like go running in at the last minute because I've been throwing it together And I'm hoping nobody asks me about these things because I really don't have a good answer because I didn't actually figure it out, right? Like, how does that feel? How does it feel to know you're in good shape? Let's really feel that future moment. And that's the motivation right now to work on this, even though I don't kind of wanna and I don't have to do it. I could do it later, but this is the time. So I'm gonna find a way to make myself do it. Maybe setting up some check-ins, right? So you talk to your boss and you're like, hey, if at the end of the week, I just want to talk to you for a couple minutes, just let you know where I'm at with this project, ask some questions, you can give me some feedback. So if you know you're meeting with your boss a few times along the way, it's easier to sort of like stick to it because you have these little mini deadlines along the way. Or maybe making some fun bet, right? And I think this is something that you can really kind of play with, but like so for example, if it's something at home where it's like, if I don't, get rid of those boxes or whatever, then you get to pick the movie we watch and I don't get to complain about it. Or we have to watch that show that you like that I think is really annoying, or you get to pick the restaurant, or you could really do a silly thing of like, you get to pick the music and I'm going to do a dance and you get to film it and you get to put it up on your TikTok or some ridiculous kind of a thing. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's fun, as long as it has good spirits about it. And it's just that extra little bit of like, okay, that's it. I need to make myself do it. So let's put this to work. A couple more slides, and then we'll get to some discussion. So think about how soft deadlines lead to things just sliding and not getting done, right? So how do you sort of remind yourself that like, you know what? I either need to pick a real deadline or I need to accept that I'm not doing this, right? Like, how do I pick a real deadline and stick to it? Or if you have a long-term project, and probably most of us do, how do you break it into some shorter deadlines? And then what can you do to motivate yourself to stick to it? How can you set it up in a way that you're actually going to show up and hit some of those like shorter deadlines? And maybe, I don't know, what are some fun bets you can make, right? Silly bets, fun bets, whatever bets, like what are some things you can do that might actually kind of like get you going a little bit more and like find a little bit of that extra motivation? So, final thoughts. Actively look for the things that you're doing well. And I say this because you're probably really good at noticing the things you don't do well. And unfortunately, you may also have some people in your life who are very happy to point out to you the things you didn't do well if somehow you didn't pick up on the fact that you didn't do it well. So it's easy to notice the things that go badly. We sometimes need to like intentionally make a point of looking for and noticing and actually kind of feeling a little bit good about the things that you are doing well. So, for example, if you arrived late at an appointment, but you left on time, right? That's the win. You did leave on time. Okay, there was more traffic than you thought, or parking was terrible, or some other thing happened. So you're still a little bit late. But here's the thing, you were less late than you would have been if you hadn't left earlier. So like I did leave earlier, I'm working on leaving earlier. That's a little bit of a win. I'm going to feel good about that. So just take a second to notice the stuff that's going well. Because if you notice it, if you let yourself feel a little bit good about it, you're more likely to do it again. And if you only focus on when it doesn't work out and what you didn't do well, you're not going to keep showing up and doing the good work to make your life better. And then finally, just keep showing up, right? Whether yesterday was great or yesterday was terrible. Either way, what is the next good thing that you can do? life has a lot of things going on. What is the next good thing you can do? That's the only thing we have any control over is the next thing that we do. So, my website, I've got some other information there. So drarituckman.com and my new book, The ADHD Productivity Manual, which has all sorts of other stuff on how to be more on top of things and be more productive and all of that. So those are my resources, but let me stop the share and let's talk about it here.
Thank you, Ari. That was a lot of stuff
Yes, it was.
and
Maybe it should
very
have been less.
and very useful. No, it's fine. We've got 20 minutes and somewhere around 9 questions in the chat, unless other ones pop up. I will go through some that are easier. How to overcome imposter syndrome, one of the
Yeah.
core experiences of an ADDer.
Yeah, this is a big one. So I think some of it is, there's a lot of parts to this. Some of this is recognizing all the years that you spent undiagnosed, all the years that you are not being treated in the right way, that life was just much, much harder because of that. To recognize that that was a very different time in your life. That was a different world. And
Nhưng mà chị bây giờ này là gì mà
now
rong
that you
hay
know
là
some things, now you can do some things differently, and that
hay
you
là
will
một
continue
rong
to learn and you'll continue to find good
bây giờ
ways
này
to
sẽ
make
para
things
calo một rong
better.
bữa nay ora cái method
Hang
Um,
on, we have to,
yep.
there's somebody we have to mute. Please mute all your microphones. Thank you.
So that's going to be some of it is holding yourself to the right standard and not sort of blaming yourself for things that you couldn't control at other times in your life. And then I think it's really applying yourself to it, right? To learn as much as you can about ADHD, to learn about yourself of like what is, what works best for me on the things I need to do. Um, to use supports like this, right? To meet other people who have similar struggles and have found ways to be successful and to feel good about what they're doing. And to have people around you who can help you feel good about something when you don't feel good about it, right? And that I think part of what's so amazing about groups like this is the support that people give each other, because we're often harder on ourselves than we would be on other people. So, recognizing everybody has their struggles and everybody has some things they're better at and other things they're not, and that you don't have to be perfect in order to live a good life, and you don't have to be perfect in order to feel good about yourself.
Mm. And just to segue into another question, because there's a lot of emotional baggage that you come with having ADD, shame and imperfection and all those things that fuel a lot of the procrastination. What would you suggest for people who don't have access to a mental health professional?
I would suggest finding groups like this, right? Take advantage of groups like this and the people who are here and other people in your community. We know that you know other people with ADHD. You may not know they have ADHD and they may not know they have ADHD, but you definitely know other people who do. So, use the resources that you have, surround yourself with people who like what is great about you, and maybe think about if there are some people in your life who I'm going to say are not a good fit for you as a friend, right? Someone who gets really kind of mean about the fact that you're late, let's say. This may not be a good fit. It's not that you are a bad friend for them, it's that you are not good friends for each other, right? So it's not just you. That, you want to have the people in your life who like what is good about you and enjoy what you bring to the friendship.
Well, what happens when you transfer that to the work situation? There's a question like, I know I have some
Mhm.
strategies, they work sometimes, but then they don't. People
Yeah.
expect me to give them a time. I can't estimate it. How do you handle that when it's a work situation?
Yeah, that work is harder, right? Because we don't have as much choice, and sometimes we need to take what we're getting. I think what I would suggest in situations like that is as much as, I mean, obviously work on your ADHD as best you can and work with your treatment providers if you have them. But I think it may also be a thing of having some really honest conversations with the people you work with. And you may not want to say the word ADHD, not because there's anything wrong with having it, but because you don't know what they think ADHD is. And if they have crazy ideas about ADHD that are wrong, it will not be helpful to anybody. Um, so my advice is to just say, this is hard for me. I really have a hard time estimating because, things take different amounts of time. Um, I can try to give you some estimates, or maybe we should touch base, at the end of each day. And see what you can do to help manage their anxiety and manage the relationship as best you can. um, but there are some times where you might be good at the job, but this is not the you might be good at doing the things with the job, but it may not be a good fit the people you're working with, right? And sometimes changing a job is ultimately what needs to happen. But I also know that's not a small thing, and sometimes we don't have that option.
Mm. So there's a couple of questions that have to do with something that you talked about, which is things will feel uncomfortable. You just need to, accept that. But there's a
Yeah,
couple of questions around that, like how do you organize your thoughts when you need them to apply the strategies? Because usually these thoughts are overwhelming. Or
yeah,
when I procrastinate, I try to push myself by being very hard on myself. But the more I push myself, the more I freeze. How can I stay
yeah,
productive without attacking myself?
yeah. And I think that is a very good point, right? That just beating up on yourself, it may work sometimes in some situations, but it carries a high cost in other ways that isn't helpful. So, I mean, I think the bigger picture here, which is very easy to say, is to try to get your life to a point where it doesn't feel like everything is a crisis or too many things are a crisis, right? Because that's not a good place to make good decisions and use good strategies. So, how do I do a bit better at some things? How do I let some other things go? How do I sort of get to a point where I have a little bit of room to breathe in my life? Um, and then I think to really try to be intentional about how you talk to yourself about stuff. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, maybe the thing you need to do is walk away for a little bit. Not forever, right? You can't walk away for, a month, but like, I need to walk away. I need to do something else. And then I need to come back and figure out what to do here. So, like, what are the ways that you can use in those overwhelmed moments to sort of like bring yourself back down? So, like I said, maybe you walk away, maybe you, I don't know, do some push-ups, right? Depending on what your office situation is. Maybe you take a walk around the block, maybe you do some mindfulness or you listen to music, maybe you call a friend, right? What are the things? Or, there's other strategies like you hold an ice cube, right? And really
Ground
focus on,
yourself. Ground
yep,
yourself. Yeah.
yep. So whatever it is that works for you to sort of get grounded in now what are my options? What am I doing here? How do I figure this out?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of ADDers use distraction with scrolling as a way to distract themselves from the
Hmm.
overwhelm, but that seeps becomes something else then.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a couple of questions on perfectionism. When perfectionism becomes an avoidance strategy, what cues show that the system has entered a maladaptive feedback loop, and how do you interrupt it?
Sure. So I think it's a thing of feeling like, so what am I doing and why am I doing it? And I think the perfectionism part is when it becomes less about I need to do this, what's good enough, and more about I need to not feel anxious about it, right? If it's more about managing my anxiety about it, if it's more about I don't want people to be critical or unhappy or whatever, right? If that's why I'm doing it and why I'm pushing myself to work hard, that might be a time to think about like, okay, wait, well, what am I doing here? Right? Is this really the thing that is the best for me?
And there's a person who's struggling with perfectionism saying, is it actually, under what circumstances is it desirable rather than an unhelpful
Mm.
strategy?
I
Somebody
think what
doesn't
I
want to let it go.
Yeah. I think it's a thing of like some things are worth it, right? Like if let's say it's a really important meeting or I don't know, it's a job interview, right? Like, yeah, you want to do really, really well in a job interview. So spending a lot of time getting ready, that's probably worth it. Um, but there's a lot of things in life that are not a job interview, right? So the question is it worth it? And I think often when we get stuck in that kind of anxiety loop, we only look at one side of it. The one side is, I don't want something bad to happen. I don't want to do a bad job and someone to think bad thoughts about me, right? So the most important thing is I have to do this really well so no one has bad thoughts. But there's the other half of this, which is if I spend twice as long on this, what else am I not doing? What else is important to me? What else could I be doing with that time? Is this the best way to spend my time? And I think that's going to be the thing that maybe gets you out of that perfectionism
Mm.
and
Um,
reminding yourself that maybe you don't have to be perfect about it, that is also an option.
right. So you distinguished cognitive ambiguity from emotional avoidance. What in practice, what cues help you tell when a task initiation struggle is low activation versus avoidant ambiguity?
Sure. So if someone is procrastinating on something, there's kind of this is very broad brushstrokes, but sometimes it's more of an anxious avoidance, meaning I feel uncomfortable. This makes me anxious. I don't want to do it because I feel bad when I do it. But then there's also the more sort of ADHD procrastination is kind of the opposite in the sense of I don't feel anxious enough about it, right? Like, yeah, I know I need to do it, but I'm not like, I'm not feeling it right now. Now, that might be making someone else feel anxious, but that's a different discussion. So, is the problem, so if I'm feeling too anxious and overwhelmed, then I need to bring myself down. If I'm not feeling enough of it, then I need to kind of bring myself up. So that it's sort of finding that middle amount of activation that's actually most productive to do some work.
What about shame and rejection? Shame is a difficult one. It can be paralyzing.
Absolutely. It definitely can. So I think there's I think there's a very long discussion about how to manage shame, but I think some of it is in the moment, it's back to that grounding, sort of grounding yourself, getting a bit of distance from the shame. And because what's happening is shame from other places in your life is pouring into this moment, right? The shame from
Right.
other stuff is coming in right now, and now I can't see anything else. So I need to like separate myself and get a bit of, distance from that and come back to like right now. What am I doing? What am I feeling? How big a deal is this? What do I know here? And what am I assuming I know? Or, what do I know that other people are thinking? What am I assuming people are thinking, right? Really, like, am I projecting the future or like, really like coming back to the present moment and trying to sort of put that shame like aside a little bit.
Yeah, it's more like a trauma response, an automatic pushing you back into an emotional state of yourself as a child that you need to recognize that this is belongs to the past.
Yeah.
How how do you deal with the doom scrolling that a lot of ADDers suffer
Yeah.
with?
Yeah, there's damn phones, right? I mean, the thing about it is a little bit of scrolling it is okay sometimes, right? Like we have stressful days. We work a lot, we think a lot. It's a lot of effort to do all the things that we need to do. So it is nice sometimes to do something kind of stupid and mindless, right? I don't have to think that hard. So whether it's, scrolling dumb things on Instagram or watching some TV show that's really not that complicated, but it's just sort of easy, right? It is nice to take a break sometimes and let our brain recharge a little bit. I think where it becomes a problem is when we're doing too much. And maybe that means I'm going to just take a quick break. I'm just going to check out a couple things. And then it's an hour later. And you're like, oh, why did I spend an hour? Or if it's bigger than that, where it's really about emotion regulation, right? So you're hiding in your phone, which is kind of like, drinking too much or eating too much or all the ways that we regulate our emotions. The obvious part there is I need to resist doing this thing that only makes me feel better in the moment, but I feel worse. But that's kind of really terrible advice. The better advice is, why am I feeling so empty? Why am I feeling so stressed out? Why am I not getting my needs met in other ways? And maybe that's really where we need to put our focus, is how to not feel so kind of overwhelmed by my life, sort of thing.
Mhm. Zero self-motivation only when I have somebody else around me. Body doubling. Question is, how can I self-motivate?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, body doubling is a pretty good strategy. So if you know it works,
Right.
then use it when you can,
Why
right?
self-motivate?
Yeah, congratulations to you. You know something that helps. But I think what I would also say, I don't believe the zero self-motivation as an overall statement. There's many things you do that nobody's forcing you to do. So I guess what I would be wondering is the stuff that you don't feel internal motivation for, why not? Right. And maybe it's, I don't know why I'm doing this. Maybe this feels like it's coming from someone else. Maybe I need to figure out for myself, is this worth doing? What is it about it that helps my life or does something important to me? Maybe there's other things getting in the way of feeling that motivation, right? So I'm worried I'm going to do a bad job, or, I don't know what I'm doing, or kind of some of the other stuff that we talked about in terms of, ambiguity or ambivalence, or, depression, or I don't know, if your sleep sucks and you're always exhausted, right? You're gonna have a lot less motivation. So, maybe there's other things that we need to look at to figure out why it is so hard to get yourself going.
Mm-hmm. And one last question. We have 2 minutes. If anybody wants to put one last question, one that I picked up is, it's hard for us to accept praise, though we need it.
Mm,
We really push it away.
yeah.
Want to say something about that?
That's one of those things that it seems like it shouldn't make sense because everybody should feel good about getting praised, right? But I think what can happen with praise is, I think it comes back to kind of the first question, the imposter syndrome of like, well, I mean, maybe I did this well, but seriously, I did so many other things badly. I just actually feel bad about myself. Or it's the thing of like, okay, yeah, I mean, I guess I did a good job on that, but here's the thing. I waited to the last minute. I threw it together. If you really knew what I did, you wouldn't think it was actually good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like there are ways of discounting that praise. And I think it's important to let ourselves feel it, even if it feels uncomfortable. And if it does feel uncomfortable, I think it's worth spending some time thinking about and maybe talking to some good people about, why does it feel uncomfortable? Because I think that is a really important thing.
Okay. This one's difficult. How can you mindfully practice being more in that middle activation part you mentioned and not function on black or white, where you act
Yeah.
based on dopamine or you just go on the other side and do nothing, analysis paralysis?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the bigger picture and then the in the moment. So the bigger picture is sort of like we said before, if your life feels too chaotic, if you feel too depleted and stressed out, and empty, then it is easy to get stuck in the black and white, right? Everything happens or too much happens in a crisis. So some of it I think is going to be that, but I think there is also some of it is, I think it's that front end perfectionism I was talking about, right? To sort of challenge that idea that everything, I have to be 100% in order to get going, right? Like, is that always true? It might be true sometimes, but is it like, can I really not do anything at all? Like, am I completely stuck, staring at the ceiling, or can I actually, is there something I can do here? And to try to find a little bit of a gray in that.
I want to say goodbye, but with one last comment, which I think is really, really at the core of things, self-compassion.
Yes.
Of ADDers, I mean, that's where you need to go, whether you have ADHD, whether you have anything else in your life, compassion is, therapy. But ADDers need to retrain themselves in that area. Do you have any short and sweet tip for
I
that?
think, I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, it's like I sort of said it before, you're probably really good at noticing what you don't do well, and other people are very happy to help you notice if somehow you missed it. So that stuff, no problem, easy. But I do think the self-compassion is really important. And I think that understanding, especially if you've been diagnosed later in life, which is probably everybody here, um, understanding how ADHD affected your life before this, how it affects your life now, what is true and what is just old bad ideas you learned along the way. What are your options? What can you do to actually live more of the life that you want to live? And to surround yourself with good people, like people in groups like this. You would never tell anyone in this group, you showed up late. What the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you such a terrible person? Nobody here would say that to anybody else. And yet, right, people say it to themselves. So, like, this is the power of a group like this.
Right. Thank you so much for being a part of this group.
It
In the
is
next 10
great to be
years,
here.
maybe we bring you to Greece again.
Gladly. It is cold and dark here. I will gladly come back to Greece.
Yeah, not today, but in general.
Not
Yeah.
today.
Let's arrange that. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, ADHD
Thank
Hellas, for
you.
hosting us.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry. Before we sign off, could we maybe take a group picture?
Yeah.
Also, let me change that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'll try to include as many people as I can. Let me see.
It's so good to see all these familiar faces there. It's like a reunion. We done?
One second. I cannot include everyone. I think there's a limit of 20 people, but I'll take 2 pictures. Okay.
Thank you all for your really,
Smile,
really
everyone.
good questions.
Okay.
We're going to share Ari's presentation with you, and you want to see the presentation again, you can find it on ADHD Hellas's YouTube channel. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, Ari.
See
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Γεια σου, Άντζελα. Γεια σου, Θησέα. Hello, Chris. And Samira και Ανθούλα. And Angelique. Hi. Hello, Nicoletta. Ανθούλα. Είσαι muted. Γεια σου, Ειρήνη. Τέλεια. Περιμένεις να φύγουν όλοι για να μου πεις γεια. Τέλεια. Τι κάνεις, παιδί μου?
Έλα, μ' ακούς?
Ναι.
Τώρα, εγώ σε ακούω, εσύ μ' ακούς?
Τώρα σε ακούω. Γεια σου.
Τώρα να κάνω unmute. Ρώτησα, είμαι το πιο παλιό μέλος εδώ, μετά από σένα.
Είναι και η Άντζελα εδώ. Είναι κάποιοι παλιοί. Είναι κάποιοι παλιοί και παλιές. Νομίζω ότι είδα μερικούς. Αλλά ήταν τόσο πολλοί κόσμος που δεν μπορούσα να τα δω όλα. Θυμάσαι
Πότε
την Άντζελα?
Όχι, δεν θυμάμαι. Πρέπει να δω πρόσωπο, θα θυμάμαι, αλλά ποια είναι η Άντζελα, όχι.
Έφυγε τώρα από εδώ. Είναι σαν reunion, παιδί μου. Είναι παλιοί, καινούργοι. Είναι φανταστικά. Άντε και του
Γιατί
χρόνου.
πέρασα κάποιους, αλλά δεν είδα κάποιον γνωστό. Κατηδίαν θα κάνουμε κάτι.
Κατηδίαν.
Διαζώσεις.
Τώρα είμαστε. Αυτό θα ήταν φανταστικό, We'll try it. Δεν έχουμε χώρο.
Είμαστε ακόμα σε αυτή την κατάσταση που δεν έχουμε χώρο.
Ναι, έχουμε πάει στο υπόγειο κιόλας.
Όπου εκεί δεν έχουμε καθόλου χώρο, είμαστε στον κοινόχρηστο χώρο ή έχουμε κάτι.
Δεν ξέρω. Έχω να πάω πολύ καιρό για να δω.
All right.
Ελπίδα
Okay.
και Ίσα, thank you very much for helping out.
Παρακαλούμε, αν χρειαστείτε κάτι, μας στέλνετε και email, αλλά νομίζω έχουμε τελειώσει.
Έχει ένα πάρα πολύ ωραίο quote. Άμα δεις στο chat, η Νικολέτα.
Quote.
Είναι πολύ ωραίο. Το έβγαλα screenshot. Θα μπορούσε να είναι κάτι που μπορούμε να ανεβάσουμε. Νομίζω ότι ήταν πολύ ωραίο.
Α,
Το βλέπεις?
ναι. Εφόσον έχουμε, πώς να το πω, έχουμε μαγνητοσκοπήσει τη συνάντηση, όλα αυτά υπάρχουν στο αρχείο, οπότε θα ήταν ωραίο, ναι, να το έχουμε κι εμείς.
It's easy to feel alone or... Τέλειο. Πολύ ωραίο είναι. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Bye bye.
Και εμείς, γεια σας.